Why not try something smart to chew on? The Lunchroom on RCI, Monday to Friday, 12:45 to 2 p.m. The Lunchroom, informative, enlightening, provocative, engaging. The Lunchroom on RCI, food for thought. The station that gives you, more lunch.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. We're back to a brand new year, 2026, and I'm your host, Calix George Jr. Now, of course, you can follow us online at our website, rcisaintlucia.com. We're streaming live as well on Facebook. You just have to search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International. Please be sure to like and share that link as well with your friends and family. And of course, we are on Radio 101.1 FM. Now, in a little while, you'll be able to call in to tell us what's on your plate today. And the number to do so is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. And we've got a new WhatsApp number, which you're going to reach us on. And that is 758-284-6001. Again, 758-284-6001. That's our new WhatsApp number. You can send in your messages, your questions, comments to that number. And of course, you can also call in on that number. Now, in terms of a bit of history for today, well, we go back to the year 1872. Johannes IV is crowned Emperor of Ethiopia, and that happened in Aksum, the first imperial coronation in Aksum in over 200 years. 1948, on this day, January the 12th, Mahatma Gandhi began his final fast. On this day in the year 2010, an earthquake devastated Haiti, killing an estimated 100,000 to 160,000 people and destroying the majority of its capital, Port-au-Prince. In the year 2025, on this day, Governor of California, Gavin Newsom, said the wildfires there were one of the worst natural disasters in U.S. history, having blazed through 40,000 acres and damaging about 12,000 structures, killing at least 24 people. And we now move on to our dish of the day.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to our program right here on the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. And we're glad to be back into a brand new year, the year 2026. And of course, it is a year that has begun with quite a lot of interest geopolitically, and the implications, of course, for us right here in the Caribbean are quite real. And on the 3rd of January this year, we saw very early on that morning a very bold attack on Venezuela by U.S. military forces, which in fact, depending on, of course, who you're listening to, were able to extract some in Venezuela using the term kidnap a sitting Venezuelan president, that of Nicolas Maduro. And he was taken out of Venezuela very early in the morning by U.S. Special Forces, the Delta Force 6 team, which has led other missions of this nature in the past, in some instances, missions to eliminate individuals, the likes of Osama bin Laden, the likes of Saddam Hussein, Muammar Gaddafi, In this instance, capturing the president of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, as well as his wife, Celia Flores, and in fact, bringing them to an awaiting amphibious vessel in the Caribbean Sea and then onwards to the United States. In fact, he's now in a New York City jail where he is awaiting trial on charges relating to narco trafficking. Of course, this is very much I'm not saying unprecedented, but unprecedented within the recent times. Although, of course, if we go back into the past, many years back into the 1980s, we saw a very similar act in respect of a smaller Latin American country, that of Panama, and its then president, Manuel Noriega, who was extracted, I think, on the same day, in fact, January the 3rd, 1989, and being brought to the United States on similar related charges of narco trafficking. Of course, subsequent to that, in fact, the same morning, in fact, there was a press conference held by US President Donald Trump, where he effectively declared that the United States will now run Venezuela and gave the assurance that Venezuela, the oil that belonged to the United States in Venezuela, was going to be utilized for the benefit of America as well as the Venezuelan people, and effectively gave the impression to the world that somehow the United States was already in charge of that country, that sovereign nation of Venezuela. Of course, different language being utilized in Venezuela, where acting president was declared by the judiciary, that of Vice President Delcy Rodriguez, formerly also a foreign minister of Venezuela. And so she, in fact, now in charge of leading the affairs of that country, going into a very, very precarious state where the leader has, of course, been taken out of that country forcefully. And of course, within that context, the issue of control and power, all of that comes into the mix. Of course, there have been many who have cited the potential illegality of the act that was actually undertaken by the U.S. military under the command of their commander-in-chief, and lots of question marks being raised in the United States itself, and of course in many other capitals around the world, as to this event and how it has in fact gone down. Lots of concerns, no doubt, in terms of how this is going to pan out around the world. We've been seeing some showdowns on the sea, on the high seas, in respect of shipments of oil coming out of Venezuela to other countries, and seemingly being captured by U.S. authorities. And we've seen that playing out with one side or the other invoking military protection to be able to actually get these vessels to their destinations. In fact, Russian military naval forces being utilized for that purpose quite recently. So very, very interesting state of play, of course. In fact, last year, we would have still been speaking about the matter of questioning this whole idea of the purpose of the U.S. military buildup. And of course, again, the statements coming out of the U.S. at that time was this was only about narco trafficking. There was no mention of state capture. There was no suggestion at all that regime change would, in fact, be coming. But we all, of course, saw this playing out in such a way, this buildup, and it certainly was expected and anticipated. And of course, according to the reporting surrounding this matter, it has been something in the making for months in terms of intelligence gathering by the CIA and other US assets to be able to effect this action, which was taken by the United States of America. Of course, at the heart of it, it would appear the matter of oil and gas and the control of oil and gas remains one of the major issues that dominates world global politics. We've known this for some time. We've seen how important oil and gas, hydrocarbons have been in terms of war, in terms of what we've seen in the Middle East, in terms of what we've seen in other parts of the world where it has led to civil wars, whether we're speaking about Timor in Indonesia, whether we're speaking about Biafra in Nigeria. We have seen how that desire of getting these substances out of the ground and the importance of it in global politics continues to be playing out. Ukraine, another very interesting example of that, also playing out in terms of mineral resources there, and of course, in the case of the country that has the largest proven oil reserves in the world, that of Venezuela, that of what they've got in that Orinoco River basin, is certainly showing that there is this continues to dominate a lot of the decision making at the highest levels in terms of the direction that we're going. And it's instructive because in one end of it, you're seeing a desire to, as Mr. Trump would probably say, drill, baby, drill. And in fact, get more production out. And we're seeing it exactly right now in the United States. The United States is, believe it or not, the world's largest producer right now of oil in the world. Not Saudi Arabia, not Venezuela, not Mexico, not Russia. They are the largest producers, not Canada, right? But of course, there are a lot of other intricacies within the context of the oil and gas sector that have to be considered. And one of them is the matter of the type of the oil that is being extracted out of the ground. A lot of it in the United States is coming out of shale, same as in the case of Canada. The methods that are being utilized can sometimes be very controversial. Fracking that is going on in many of these areas. And what, of course, is available in Venezuela, quite often termed sweet crude or heavy crude, is definitely still sought after by the many oil refineries in the United States of America, especially in the Gulf, in that Gulf Coast, Gulf of Mexico region, where a lot of their refinery capacity is located. They are in fact built to process that heavy crude, and so that's exactly what Venezuela has a lot of. The implications are very, very dire, and there are, of course, global implications in this respect. The question marks that are being asked, if this is the direction that the United States is going in respect of Venezuela, what makes them any different from Russia in respect of Ukraine? what makes them any different in terms of China in respect of Taiwan? And so, if in fact it is okay for the United States, the country that in fact is the home of the United Nations, headquartered in New York, home to so many of these multilateral agencies, that has effectively been dubbed the world's policeman. How is it going to really police the rest of the world uh, if it does not have that kind of moral authority, if it in fact is engaging in those types of activities? And so you're hearing lots of suggestions at play that this is a continuation of the Monroe Doctrine, a 19th century, early 19th century declaration by a U.S. President from a very different time, over 100 years ago, declaring the rights of the United States over keeping out of new colonization of European powers in the Americas, and effectively indicating that the U.S. should have hegemonic control and influence over the Americas, setting the stage very clearly for that to play out. But even so, many have pointed out that in many instances, the U.S. cannot do it alone. And even at that time, Britain was a major player in keeping the Spanish imperialist forces out of many of these newly created states, such as Gran Colombia, which eventually became Colombia, and Venezuela, and the many Central American states that were being created and elsewhere in Latin America. That if it was not for the British Army and the British Navy, really, to be able to enforce this, it would not have been really possible for the United States to achieve that. Today, of course, it's a very different United States. It is a United States which is by far the world's largest military power. It is effectively the single superpower of the world when it comes to military strength. And so, therefore, it can, in fact, project itself fully now, if it so wished, across the Americas. And so, of course, we're seeing even on the other end, on the northern side, and in terms of Arctic affairs, what has already been proclaimed as an area of interest by Mr. Trump, that of Greenland, seen as being potentially a very important strategic defense location for that of the United States against Russia. But many have pointed out that even in that instance, military national security interests may very well likely be secondary to the greater interest of pursuit of the rights to extract and exploit and gain wealth through minerals. And that again is what we're seeing in the case of Greenland being played out. That as of now, there's nothing preventing the United States from increasing its military presence in Greenland. It already has bases in Greenland. It can, in fact, increase on those bases if it so chose, through the cooperation that it already has with the Danish authorities. But it's a different matter at play here. And so, in many of these instances, what seems to be driving the policy has a lot to do with the dollar, a lot to do with how there can be a greater extraction of wealth, and that wealth coming from mineral resources, that wealth coming from commodity extraction. That is what we're seeing playing out. And it begs the question, of course, is this again a major pivot, as we've been hearing from Mr. Trump, his desire to see an America that is once again a manufacturing giant that is producing again in great measure, Is this now another pivot for trying to gain resources, trying to gain control of major resource centers around the world as the United States tries to deal with the rising dragon that is the People's Republic of China. And certainly, China has been through many different efforts, expanding its influence as well as its rights to operate and extract resources from many parts of the world. And we've seen, of course, a rising interest in Africa by China. And they have become effectively one of the largest trading and development partners in respect of Africa. And in terms of the infrastructure that is going into Africa, but of course, as well, in terms of what is coming out of Africa and heading to that of China. The attempts now we're seeing in respect of the United States is certainly seemingly geared towards trying to gain control over areas that are relatively close to the United States and have great influence over the extraction of resources, materials, not just necessarily oil and gas, but also other things, rare earth minerals, metals that could be utilized in production. So all of that is effectively at play. And so it means, therefore, that we're seeing a 2026 that is going to be a very, very interesting state of play in this regard. Because here you're seeing the moves by the United States of America. We've seen the moves over the past couple of years by Russia in their own backyard. And the question is, are we going to be seeing moves by other major world players as well who will feel justified in regards the matter of control over their own backyard? And of course, one of them, which may seem very far away physically from us, that of China, Taiwan, is of course something that is very close developmentally in terms of what we are, how we have been developing over the past years right here in St. Lucia. And we speak, of course, of our development partner, the Republic of China, Taiwan. This back and forth, of course, between China and Taiwan has caused for many small states to become very important by way of their diplomatic rights, and so, of course, if something like this may pan out in the case of Taiwan, where will that leave the Eastern Caribbean? Where will that leave countries like St. Kitts, St. Vincent, St. Lucia, who in fact have been pegged to the Republic of China, Taiwan, especially in terms of the assistance that this country has received by way of scholarships, by way of direct monetary assistance for projects. And so the implications, of course, for a country like St. Lucia are very, very real. And of course, even as that is playing out, we are also seeing the efforts by these very same global powers, be it the United States of America, be it Europe, in respect of the matter of citizenship by investment. And that has become a tool of sorts, if you like, that is now being effectively used as a point of leverage by many of these countries. Because, of course, we have taken the advantage of our sovereignty and the strength of our passports and the opportunities that it has afforded us in terms of greater access to be able to, create value out of that for our countries. And of course, many islands like Dominica, like St. Kitts and Nevis, like Grenada, have a very high dependence on citizenship by investment to bring in investment, yes, but also direct revenue to these treasury coffers of these countries. And so a very high dependence exists to for these countries in terms of just being able to keep the country running. And so uh, that's very much known by European authorities as well as American authorities, and so they are now, of course, effectively placing the spotlight on these activities and well, coming up with lots of different suggestions that these could somehow be security risks to these countries, and so that is where we're seeing now, of course, the efforts by the Trump administration. Quite recently, we saw travel bans being issued against Dominica as well as St. Kitts and Nevis, and I'm sorry, Antigua, and then of course, they want something in return, and we've been seeing exactly what is coming in that regard. The matter of tackling immigration, it is one of those very politicized campaign promises, very popular amongst the base of Mr. Trump. And they want, of course, to see action being taken in respect of clamping down on immigration into the United States, be it illegal or be it legal. And that is part of the where we find ourselves being utilized or being wanting to be utilized by the United States to be able to be effectively destinations and holding centers for persons who may be seeking asylum or for persons who are already in the United States and who've they want to be able to send to other countries now away from the U.S. shores. Now, we've seen a little bit of that in terms of Guantanamo. That didn't seem to work out very well. We've seen such efforts as well being done by other countries in Europe. Rwanda, for example, became a destination for persons who were seeking asylum to the United Kingdom, being sent to a third party country, that of Rwanda, where they can, in fact, be kept while their asylum requests are being processed. And so, again, the Caribbean is finding itself now within this context of being potential countries where such individuals can be relocated or be brought into. Is it good? Is it bad? Of course, we'll have to see how that all pans out. Some have suggested that there may very well be some good benefits towards the Caribbean in this regard. We, of course, are seeing challenges in terms of the population of our small islands. We've seen for many years now a brain drain, persons moving out of the Caribbean and heading, of course, to the metropolitan centers of of North America. And could this potentially be something that could be to our benefit if it is well thought through, if it is well developed? Perhaps so. And many countries have been suggesting that, hey, you know what, we don't have a problem with increasing our population through this means. We've heard, for example, in the case of Dominica, pointing out that, hey, we're willing to even accept people coming out of Gaza because of all the difficulties that are existing in that part of the world. Not unthinkable, certainly, because we've seen over the years many individuals coming out of Syria, Lebanon, many of them seeking refuge in other countries and have been able to find very successfully and made their homes right here in the Caribbean. And so, not an unthinkable situation in that regard, in respect of our countries right here. So, very interesting times, no doubt about it. Potential for dislocation, potential for for difficult moments. We've seen the impacts as to how very quickly this can escalate. And just after the attack on Caracas and the extraction of Mr. Maduro, we saw airspace being impacted, flights being effectively cancelled the day after. And we've gone back to some, of course, a semblance of order now, but there are potential long-term implications which we really don't know how those things are going to pan out. So certainly the Caribbean has to be very much aware of what is going on. They need to be very open in terms of their in terms of following what is actually occurring. It also means that we need to ensure that we're not putting all our eggs into one basket, and we certainly also need to be thinking about our security and where that might mean climate security, food security, health security, and in fact, defense security. All of them have to be thought of very, very carefully at this time in what could be potentially be a very, very turbulent time in our development. That's our dish of the day. When we come back, we've taken our weather report and then hopefully head to some phone calls as well.
This has been The Daily Dish.
Island style, yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island style. We got the time that will make you happy. Island style. Oh yeah. We make your dream come alive. In Island style. We have times and things, sets, pieces and ground. Everything you need is on the outside. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style car. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. Quality, price, service, choice. It's all at Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Bellarosa, Rodney Bay, on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewport Highway. So call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
And that's all, of course, on the 1.1. It's now time for your weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style, Tile and Bath. The forecast for St. Louis will valid for the next 24 hours. Winds will be blowing from the east in 16 miles per hour or 26 kilometers per hour. The weather fair skies becoming cloudy at times with a few showers. The forecast for Los Angeles, fair skies becoming cloudy at times with widely scattered showers. And the weather summary, the Atlantic high pressure system will maintain light to moderate easterly winds across the region during the next couple of days. Patches of low-level clouds drifting along the wind flow will produce a few showers over the Los Angeles during the forecast period. And this was your weather forecast as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style, Tile and Bath.
This has been RCI's weather news. For more information, call the weather hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Island Style, yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island Style. We got the time that will make you happy. Island Style. Oh yeah. We make your dream come alive. In Island Style. We have times and things, sets, pieces and ground. Everything you need is on the outside. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style car. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. Quality, price, service, choice. It's all an island style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Belarus and Rodney Bay on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewfort Highway. So call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
And welcome back to the Lunchroom, our first program for the year 2026. And we do hope that you're having a wonderful, wonderful year thus far. And of course, we want to wish you and your families the very, very best for 2026. Of course, the number to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, it is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. And our WhatsApp number, let me just get that WhatsApp number back out again because I have not quite memorized it, but it is 284-6001, 284-6001. That's our new WhatsApp number here at the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. Just yesterday, we actually heard from the Prime Minister, Honorable Philip J. Pierre, at the National Address. Of course, we will speak about that in just a bit, but we're going to go to the phone lines for our first call of the year. Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom. What's on your plate today? Hi, good afternoon. Very good caller. How are you doing? Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh boy. Well, wow. Well, caller, what I would say, caller, although I'm not familiar with the situation, but I said, although I am not familiar with the issues surrounding the situation, but based on what you're saying regarding if it is a decision that has been taken by the relevant authority, whether it's the general counsel or the executive, then sure, right. Right, but surely, I mean, there must be more than two signatory holders for the CSA. So I would imagine that somebody else should be able to sign that in addition to maybe the treasurer or whoever else. Right. Right, and I'm saying that normally in an institution like that, you have a number of different signatories, and you of course would require. That's what I'm saying. Account. I'm talking about account. Yeah, but that's what I'm speaking about. Account signatories. I mean, I'm not talking about a constitutional matter, but I'm saying that there must be account signatories, and normally there would be a certain. You may need, one or another. In some instances, at least two persons to sign, or in other instances. Okay, so therefore, because even Yeah, of course, because if it is a matter of incapacity, right? And so I mean, it's always that way because you may have a situation where the president may not be well or somebody cannot be around. So surely there are other people who should be able to act. Right, but what I'm right, and what I'm saying is that agreed, and I acknowledge that there's probably a problem, but I'm saying that surely there should be a way of circumventing that. That it need not be that this one individual may be, in fact, holding this. Well, we know it. Yeah. Well, yes, yes, I can. Mm. So therefore, what you're suggesting is that there are other issues at play, not simply the matter of. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Well. All right. Well, I really do hope that, of course, this matter gets resolved very quickly. Perhaps we can. Mhm. Yeah. And in the case of, but you see, caller, you realize that in our case, we are so heavily tied to the United States of America, in the Caribbean, and even more so in the Eastern Caribbean. Even our currency is pegged against the U.S. dollar. We're highly dependent on the U.S. for our major industry, that of tourism. The vast majority of our. So, but caller, is it? Yes, but is it? Yes, I. Well, very few, very, very few, certainly, yes. Hmm. Well, thanks for that intervention, caller, and have a good one. And of course, sounds nice. It sounds great. The big question is though, and this is again how can the entire Caribbean together and say that? Can we stand together? And even if we all come together and say it, will it in fact be sufficient and adequate to be able to protect that interest of some of these programs of what we've kept going. Now, even Canada, for example, which is one of the countries that he mentioned, has the very same problem that we do. It has an over reliance on trade with the United States of America. It really depends on its exports going to the United States, its people going to there. I mean, so it is a major challenge when you're dealing with a behemoth that is a superpower. That is, of course, not just a superpower, but a superpower really a stone's throw away in our neck of the woods. And so that, of course, is easier said than done. And of course, will there be unity even amongst, say, countries in Latin America, for example, right? Because that too is another area where we're seeing a lot of division, a lot of everybody for themselves. You know, each country is looking at their own issues as it is. And will there be that level of unity in dealing with hemispheric matters, as the case may be right about now? You know, and so much easier said than done. It will require certainly a lot of strength of leadership, a lot of action, but in the interim, the reality still remains that we are dealing with, especially within our sub-region, a very, very high dependence on U.S. trade, on U.S. Economic activity, whether it's through tourism, whether it's through financial services, whether it's you're talking about airlift and logistics and all of those things interwoven within the United States of America. There was a time, maybe in the past, that we were very strongly dependent on the UK, you know, in like measure. But of course, we've seen how that has completely changed, and we've got that very, very high dependence in respect of the United States of America. And so, yes, the Caribbean has been speaking about pivoting away from that dependence, trying to diversify, trying to do those things. And maybe we're seeing a few little efforts here and there in this regard. whether it's trying to strengthen the bonds with respect to Africa, but it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a process. It's going to take some time, and so how you deal with the immediate situation that we are dealing with, of course, has to have some level of pragmatism in this regard. So definitely, we will have to be speaking about these issues and looking at how it all, of course, pans out as our region, as a sub-region, as our Caribbean region begins to make some movement in this regard. We've seen in the case of Trinidad and Tobago, for example, they seem to be very much squarely in support of the U.S. actions. In the first instance, their claim was that they were supporting the issue of narco trafficking. And they, of course, have been one of the countries that has, in the CARICOM space, has certainly been impacted by Venezuela the most in particular. I mean, the reality is that the La Guira is very much visible from Chaguaramas and the west side of Trinidad and Tobago. The Gulf of Paria is separating them. They're very close, and we've seen thousands of Venezuelans coming on to Trinidad shores, and of course, are trying to make a home there, as have nearly 7.5 million Venezuelans who've left Venezuela looking for homes and have moved to other parts of Latin America and other parts of the world. Specifically, a lot of them have ended up in Colombia, over 2.5 million, I think, nearly 750,000 in the United States of America and elsewhere, of course. So Trinidad, of course, is the one country in CARICOM that they have seen that impact in terms of that movement of people out of Venezuela. It is very important, of course, that for the region that we can see stability in Venezuela. That this country has, of course, been impacted by years and years of increased sanctions by the United States of America that have, in fact, impacted on the economy of that country to bring it to its knees, to where it is at right now. Very interestingly enough, there's that meeting which occurred with Mr. Trump and the heads of the many oil and gas companies from the United States of America, and a very interesting interaction with one of the execs from Halliburton. And he was being asked, well, when did you leave Venezuela? Well, we left Venezuela in 2019 as a result of sanctions, the increase in sanctions. And of course, who was the president at that time? Well, it was Mr. Donald Trump. And so, of course, the impact that we've been seeing by these actions, of course, have really had a serious effect on Venezuela. And certainly we all want to be able to see that this country can be a major player once again in terms of its own development, but of course the development of the Caribbean. We have been a friend of Venezuela since our independence in 1979. I think it was one of the first countries which, in fact, established an embassy here in St. Lucia. We've had a historical connection with Venezuela over the years, and of course, epitomized by Jean-Baptiste Bidot and the efforts that he played in the whole Bolivarian revolution back in the beginning of the 19th century. So we certainly have potentially very strong ties with Venezuela, just like the rest of the Caribbean. And the Caribbean as a region is certainly endowed with lots of wealth and potential, and we're seeing that. But can it remain in the Caribbean? Can it be used to develop the Caribbean? Can the Caribbean not simply be dependent on tourism and some of the few dollars of individuals' discretionary income coming into this region, but that we can in fact be enjoying, really clear and useful, economic activity that is sustainable, that is sound, that is resilient to the types of shocks that we quite often have to deal with in one of the most vulnerable parts of this world. So certainly, to be able to achieve that might be a dream, because we've known that for so many hundreds of years, it has been a place of exploitation, and it has been a place where individuals quite often come to fight their wars. And so let's hope that we can, in fact, begin to see a change, but that may not come that easily. Now, of course, we had not been able to get into the address to the nation from the Prime Minister. Perhaps we can get into that in tomorrow's program of the Lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. But of course, we hope that you can join us for the rest of the week, and we'll be back again tomorrow for another program. I'm your host, Alex George Jr., saying goodbye.